Germany faces its third year of recession, with its economy shrinking by 0.2% in 2024 after a 0.3% drop in 2023. High energy costs, Chinese competition, and declining industrial output are key factors. Corporate bankruptcies rose by 25% last year, alongside more consumer bankruptcies. Europe fears an influx of cheap Chinese goods due to US tariffs. EU leaders warn that China's overproduction could disrupt European industries. The concerns are particularly marked in Germany.
China is going to have a tough time exporting its way to continued growth in the economy, which is its standard playbook over the years as the economy weakens.
Trump himself, of course, has said that he's looking to make deals like offering China a rebate on tariffs if they sell him TikTok.
China is actively seeking new markets in response to the steep 125% tariffs imposed by the US on Chinese goods. The tariffs, which have escalated through multiple rounds, are part of a broader trade war that has disrupted global markets and raised concerns about economic stability.
When we combine the previous tariffs on China with the new ones, their scope and severity are greater. This will undoubtedly lead to more supply chain relocations out of China.
China must also work hard to stabilize weak sectors like housing and consumer markets. In Germany, the consensus is to stay level-headed.
The future government, the future coalition will reform and invest in order to keep Germany stable, to make it safer and economically stronger again. Europe too can count on Germany.
We should, I think, react in a level-headed way. If we react too harshly now, as the Chinese are doing now, then there will be a backlash again. But it's quite difficult for the politicians now, it has to be said.
Germany is modernizing healthcare, boosting e-mobility, and upgrading infrastructure. However, industrial output is down, and Chinese competition is putting pressure on key sectors like automobile manufacturing. The Economic Brief, DD India.
Germany and their economy hoping to recover under a new administration, but the tariffs might be pushing Chinese goods directly into Europe from the US. So, China's BYD, for instance, it's the automobile company which produces electric cars. It's producing twice as many cars as Volkswagen does. So do you see the Chinese, struggling to find new markets?
Certainly. By the way, BYD has a lovely title, if you know what it means. Build your dreams, right? It's a great thing. Now look what happens. You have, here you have to put the fault on the Americans. They have been pushing Europe into a corner by saying, don't buy gas from Russia because they are sanctioned. Don't buy fuel from Russia because there are sanctions on Ukraine. Now they're saying, don't do this with China because they're under sanctions. So who the hell are they going to buy from? Germany is one of the strongest economies in the world, the strongest industrial power that we have. If they can't have a deal with Chinese, which is the biggest market, they are not, they're not trading with Russia because of sanctions. And then you announce that we are not going to trade with you either. Where do they go?
Yes.
I see the Europeans slowly now not listening to the Americans anymore. It's a long history. Since the 80s, the Europeans have felt that the Americans have been exerting too much hegemony and making them give up. Now, Trump may be right about saying that the Ukraine is your problem, you pay for it. But then he should allow the Europeans to allow the economic instruments to pay for it. You can't say, we'll tell you how to spend, but you spend where, we'll tell you where to spend. That doesn't work. So I see Europe moving much closer to China. Maybe not Russia. Russia runs the economic cloud. I see that happening. But at the moment, the whole world, let me tell you, is going to be worrying about, and India very much so. Our Director General of Trade Remedy is going to be working overtime because this where do the Chinese go but elsewhere. And the problem is China not being a democracy. They are a very efficient producer. There's no doubt about it, even if you don't like them. Right. And their goods have to find a market. Look at India. We want to keep the Chinese out for economic reasons. Perfectly okay. Safeguards and so anti-dumping. But you need the insulin.
Okay.
You need the power equipment. What are you going to do?
So there are lots of products that are absolutely essential that they come from China. because they have the only
I
supply
believe
chain.
the Director General of Trade Remedies has his task cut out in India in the
Sure.
next.
So,
I still believe.
but Professor Pant, since we're talking about Germany, is the German economy fundamentally strong? Do you
Very
think?
strong.
Yeah, okay. So it can
Very
get out
strong.
of this recession. Do you see
No
that they
no
also need to
country.
increase exports, right? Where will they go?
Absolutely.
Right.
But you can't, they are the most export dependent of all the European economies, much more than France or Spain or anyone. They're the ones, they are the backbone of the EU. If tomorrow Germany collapses, the EU experiment is over. Let's be very clear about that. They are the backbone of Europe and they are the industrial power. Today, German electronics beat any electronics in the world. Even the German cars are technologically more efficient than any other car in the world. But you can't clip their wings, right? Their biggest trading partner has been China. And you're saying, no, you can't trade with China because China is now under sanctions and you put economic sanctions on China, you've got political sanctions on Russia. Where do they go? I mean, there's something in it for India, but India doesn't have the economic power to satisfy the demand there. I do believe they're going to improve the links with China, but slowly, because they've got their own problems.
Now, President Trump's 90-day pause on tariffs, and he's provided a baseline 10% for most countries, but the 125% for China. Some would argue, I mean, those in favor of Trump say that he has succeeded in bringing most of the countries to his side and he has isolated China. Would you agree with that?
I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. Let me give you some numbers. And I've been writing extensively on this in various places. Today, the US, by the way, first of all, what he's talked about Trump and what he seems to understand is commodity trade. He doesn't understand trade in services. So we talk about only commodity trade. Today, the US accounts for only 13% of total world demand for commodity production. Let's add, say, another 3% because China has been routing its exports through Vietnam and through Mexico and so on. Let's add another 15 to 16%. 15 to 16% can't, the tail can't, wag the dog. So my point is these other countries have become very lazy. He should be very worried. He may actually make the Europeans start getting active. They've been very lazy. They have a lazy life. Good pensions, very little work. The laziest area in the world they can think about. If he wakes, you're waking up a sleeping giant. And I've got a feeling they are not going to believe him. Although I know that at the moment he's put a pause. And I do think he should have at least indicated in off-channel method that my problem is China, which I know it is. And I'm not going to enforce it, which is what he did last year. If you remember in 2016, he did exactly the same things.
Right.
And he put the sanction on China, then he withdrew them. He told Mexico, sign agreement that you won't allow people to, it's as if the Mexican government doesn't tell people, please go and infiltrate into the US. So he cannot be driving it. And then he withdrew it. He did the same thing, but this time he feels that he's making it a personal thing. It's very dangerous.
Sure, but
For
you
any
see,
politician to take any issue personally is an absolute recipe for disaster. I believe the American people will give the answer because the Chinese can afford inflation, right? Who in China is going to tell Z that your things are getting expensive? What about it? Nothing. You just didn't bear it.
We're running short of time, Professor Pant, but a final word. You seem to be suggesting that there are an opportunity here for Europe and Germany in particular to probably renegotiate suitable trade deals, maybe with the US, maybe with China, maybe even with India. So what do you think? I mean, where do we all stand?
I think where we stand is that the WTO is now dead. It's been dead for a while because of the appellate authority. That's all. It will stay as a kind of a thing at the background. I think that these RTAs that we've been conducting, we'll do more of those. We shouldn't go crazy and do it in every single country that we think of, which is what seems to be happening. But certainly places like EU, the UK, maybe even China. It's worth thinking in terms of foreign investment coming in from China. After all, the Chinese are here, right? We don't like them, correct? But their phones are here.
Right.
Their insulin is here. Their power equipment is here. And if you, instead of trying to stop them at the port, why not let them come and construct? What can they do? They can't pick up the factory and go with it. So I believe restructuring of the world order is going to take place because a person like Trump is an unknown person, unguided missile, so to speak. So I do believe that I think the future for India is bright, certainly.
Okay, the future of India is bright. We leave it on that note. Thank you very much, Professor Manoj Pant. Thank you for joining us and enlightening us on two of the major stories that we talked about today. Amravati, the capital of Andhra Pradesh, getting a boost after the relaunch of its development projects, as well as how Germany is handling a revival of its economy in the midst of all this tariff war.